hobbies my relatives.
The Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and your local cable provider presents Cable Reports. Join us now as Cable Reports brings you up to date on current issues facing the Commonwealth through discussions with your local legislators and other policymakers from across Virginia.
Welcome to a special edition of Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association, connecting Virginians to their government. We're so happy to have Todd Haymore with us today, the Secretary of Agriculture and Forestry, actually responsible for two of the largest industries in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back. It's always a pleasure, and get to talk a little bit about what's going on in agriculture and forestry all around the Commonwealth.
Well, I understand there's an announcement you'd like to make.
Yeah, we're later this morning, the governor, Mayor Jones, myself, and some other folks will be announcing that Blue Bee Cidery in Richmond, Virginia, Virginia's only urban cidery, will be expanding in Richmond. Right now they're located in the Manchester area. We're going to be relocating to Scott's Addition, purchasing the old city stables, historic property that the city had put up on the market, and Courtney Maley and her team at Blue Bee Cider have purchased it, and they will be making a significant investment, hiring more people, and least importantly, or most equally importantly to it all, is they're going to be purchasing a lot of Virginia apples to make this hard cider, this award-winning hard cider. So it's a great win for Richmond, great win for agribusiness, particularly agribusiness in an urban area, which just doesn't happen all the time, and then also the farmers who are going to be producing more apples for Courtney and her team to make the cider that will be sold in Virginia and around the country. So great day, and we're looking forward to doing that with the governor and Mayor Jones here in a few hours.
And this has all been made possible, of course, by a fund called AFID.
AFID, Governor's Agriculture and Forestry Industries Development Fund. It's a mouthful, so we put it down to AFID, A-F-I-D. And yes, we created that fund in 2012 in response to, the state has a number of successful incentive programs to help attract new business and industry to the state, but also help existing business and industry expand. We found that agricultural operations and forestry operations in some cases weren't qualifying for some of those funds, or they weren't qualifying for them at all because the investment wasn't great enough or the job creation wasn't great enough. That's understandable, but again, with an agricultural operation, particularly in a place like where I'm from, Pittsylvania County, if an agricultural operation is going to invest $1 million and create 5 to 10 new jobs, that's a big deal. $1 million, 5 to 10 new jobs in a more urban setting may not be that big of a deal, may not move the needle, as we say in the Secretariat a lot. So we created the AFID in response to that, and it's really been successful. It's very similar to like the state, the Commonwealth Opportunity Fund,
Right.
in that a private sector entity has to make an investment. They have to create jobs. The locality, a county or a city, has to be working with them in partnership. We come forward with incentive grants that they match what the locality is willing to do. The thing that makes us different, besides the fact that it's dedicated to agriculture and forestry exclusively, is that there is a buy local component in it. There's a provision in it that says you must purchase at least 30% Virginia-grown products and add value to them. So we've been very successful. We've had 33 projects, I think, with the one coming on today, about $324 million in private sector investment, matched up with about $2.8 million state investment. It's pretty good ROI there when you're looking at 1,500 jobs all around the state in urban areas, suburban and rural sectors, obviously. And the thing that I'm really proud about, on top of the investment and the jobs being created, is that over $450 million in new agricultural purchases. Those are the companies buying those raw commodities, adding value to them. So it's giving our farmers more opportunities. So it's jobs, it's investment, tax revenue, but it's also working with our producers to have them produce more agricultural commodities that will go into making the product. So really proud of the fund, the AFID fund, and Governor McAuliffe has been a huge champion of it. He has a budget amendment to double the size of the fund, add some more manpower to it, because we're understaffed right now with the growing interest in the program all around the state. So I could go on and on. Just a very, very successful program thus far, and the feedback from the private sector, the localities, and the General Assembly has been outstanding as well. So looking forward to building on it.
Of course, it goes hand in hand with the continued promotion of the new Virginia economy.
Absolutely. Yeah, the governor has made it very clear. We need to become less reliant on those federal dollars, and we already are. But he's also said that agriculture and forestry, two of Virginia's three largest private sector industries, are going to be key components of that. Agriculture generates about $52 billion a year in annual revenue all around the state, over 300,000 jobs. Forestry is about $17 billion, over 100,000 jobs, again, all around the state. About 90% of the state's land mass is covered in either farmland or forest land. There's huge, huge opportunities out there, not only current things people are taking advantage of in agriculture and forestry, but future opportunities. We're on a glide path to having to feed 9 billion people around the world between now and 2050. Agriculture obviously is going to play a huge role in that, and Virginia agriculture can, and that's why the governor has really stepped up. A lot of the initiatives that we started under Governor McDonald, I was his secretary as well, Governor McAuliffe is building on. We've created some new programs. We have several budget amendments to enhance some things that we're doing for agriculture, particularly the farmer base, but also agribusinesses and forestry operations. So we're really, really excited. And again, it's just a recognition when you're trying to build something or trying to diversify, you play to your strengths. And with Virginia's economy being so closely wound to agriculture and forestry, that's two huge strengths, and you have to play to them when you're trying to develop this new Virginia economy. And so far, I think we're off to a good start 2 years into the administration.
How does the Commonwealth compare to other states on the eastern seaboard?
As far as agriculture is concerned, a number of states on the eastern seaboard have agriculture as one of their top industries. I think the best comparison is North Carolina and Virginia. We're very, very similar. Both have very diversified agricultural economies. So I would think right now, thinking about really looking truly at the eastern seaboard, you're looking at Virginia, North Carolina, and probably Georgia, all fighting for that top position as far as revenue and jobs. We think, obviously we're biased, we think we have the most diversified and well-equipped agricultural and forestry economy. My grandfather used to say that in Virginia we're producing everything from apples to zucchini, and he's not that far off in the grand scheme of things. And we're utilizing those products that we're producing with agribusinesses adding value, putting them into the global marketplace. We have an incredible team of marketing experts at the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, not only here in Virginia, but around the world promoting our products. We have the deepest port on the East Coast that's ready to handle those post-Panamax vessels that will be coming through when the canal is finally opened in June of 2016, and moving those products into the global marketplace. So very, very blessed to have such strong agricultural and forestry economies. They're helping to feed us, helping to clothe us. And when you think about the forestry component, a roof over your head, and you think about all the things that are going on with energy, agriculture and forestry are playing roles there. So I talk about ag and forestry being fundamental to life because they do provide the food, fiber, shelter. And you just think about it as diversifying that economy and building a new Virginia economy. They're going to play key roles. So Virginia being a powerhouse already on the East Coast, I think you'll continue to see that grow. And I hope, our plan is to have the Weldon Cooper Center at the University of Virginia update the economic impact study on ag and forestry starting later this year. So we'll roll out the new data in 2017 before Governor McAuliffe's time in office finishes up.
Now I understand that this afternoon you're accompanying the governor to Washington, D.C. for a pretty significant meeting.
Yeah, we're building on our relationship with Cuba. Since 2000, Congress allowed for agricultural exports to move from the United States to Cuba. Effectively, that's the only things that the United States can really do with Cuba. There's been some expansion of those opportunities under the Obama administration over the last year or so, but agriculture remains that key point. And we've worked very hard. Governor Warner, back in 2003, allowed the first group of Virginians to go down and market Virginia. Since really 2007, 2008, we've had a strong strategic focus on growing our export relationship with Cuba. And Governor Warner, Governor Kane, Governor McDonald, and now Governor McAuliffe have all shared the same view about taking advantage of what's available down there and hopefully using agriculture as a catalyst for positive change between the United States and Cuba. And I think we've gotten there. Last week we announced that Virginia was the largest exporter in America to Cuba. We did about $42 million worth of agricultural commodities there. So as we continued the dialogue with the embassy in Washington, but also officials in Havana in building that Virginia relationship, we've met some of the highest levels of leadership in Cuba. And Foreign Trade Minister Malmierca was supposed to be in Virginia this week. Unfortunately, the snowstorm canceled his visit. So the governor and I are going to Washington later this afternoon to spend a couple of hours with them, the ambassador and a few others, to talk about the things that we had planned to talk about on Monday when he was in Virginia. It would have been a historic visit, been the first time in 55 years that a senior Cuban official had visited the Commonwealth. We're going to invite him back. We're going to invite other folks back and continue to give more opportunity, not only for agriculture in the current state, because that's really all we can trade with now, but really position Virginia to be at the front of the line as relationships between the United States and Cuba continue to thaw, continue to head toward normalization, and I believe we're truly headed toward normalization at some point in the future, hopefully the near future. And Virginia, again, we're so close to Cuba. Our port in Norfolk it's less than a 3-day vessel trip from Norfolk to the big port in Havana, or the new port they've just built right outside of Havana. There is no reason why we can't take advantage of the thawing relationship and again making sure that Virginia, whether it's agriculture, healthcare, technology, I could go on, that when Cuba opens up, we should be able to take advantage of those opportunities. And then for the Cubans, as they're looking to visit America, they're looking to do more things, make sure that they know Virginia is a place that they can do business, visit. So again, a lot of excitement there, but we'll be spending some time with the ambassador and the minister later this afternoon, and hopefully taking another step forward and making sure that Virginia and Cuba do have a really, really solid relationship now, but more importantly in the future.
Now, you mentioned other points around the globe where farmers are able to export their products. Are we talking about Asia, for example?
We are. We built a very solid trade representative network at the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services since we launched the Global Export Initiative for Ag and Forestry in late 2010, early 2011. At that point in time, Virginia had one international trade office. One in Hong Kong. And I've said it 1,000 times. The world's a lot bigger than Richmond, Virginia, and Hong Kong. So what we did, Department of Ag staff really worked with their counterparts at USDA to figure out if the state was going to make investments, put trade representatives on the ground around the world, where would the best places to be? Some of the numbers spoke for themselves. We moved from having the single office in Hong Kong to now having offices in China, India, United Kingdom with a satellite office in Russia, Canada, and lastly an office in Mexico that has a satellite office in Costa Rica. So with that less than $3 million investment in state funds over the last 5 years, we've generated over $750 million in new agricultural exports from Virginia. That's
a pretty good return.
It's a very good return. And again, the members of the General Assembly really like that. And as we look to continue to build that network, we have budget amendments in place to put new trade representative offices in the Middle East. The governor and I just returned from the Middle East, I guess right before Christmas. We visited UAE, Oman, Kuwait. Governor was successful in having bans on our poultry products lifted in Oman and Kuwait because of his dialogue with senior officials there. We were in India during that trip as well. But part of that was looking and scouting about opportunities to have a trade representative in that region of the world, very fast-growing region looking to buy more U.S. products. The other place where the budget amendment would impact is far Southeast Asia, countries like Vietnam, Philippines, Malaysia, representing huge, huge opportunities, and we want to put boots on the ground there as well. Very, very small amount of money in the grand scheme of things, that really one new trade deal that representative can help facilitate between a Virginia exporter and a foreign purchaser, it pays for itself, sometimes in one deal. So again, working with the General Assembly, you explain that to them, and you see the percentage growth in the places of sales and value of those sales in the places where we've made these very small targeted investments. very, very impressive. I mean, we have over 100% growth in China, over 200% growth in Mexico, 25 to 30% growth in Canada. I could go on and on with these places where we've had boots on the ground in Virginia, taxpayer dollars, generating a lot of new opportunities for sales. And exports have reached an all-time high, $3.35 billion last year. We've moved from 5th place on the East Coast in status for exports of ag and forestry products to number 2. We're only behind Georgia now. We're going to be announcing the new trade figures on March 7th or 8th when the governor hosts his annual trade conference for agricultural products. I think it's going to be difficult to get over and reach another record for agricultural exports this year because the commodity prices have fallen so much, and it's really impacted the value. So our volumes are going to be up while prices are down.
Right.
So even though we likely won't hit another record, there's a story to be told, that you continue to make these targeted investments, you continue to tell the Virginia story, and you can generate new sales and get return on investment and open up new opportunities for our growers and our exporters. So as you can tell, I'm very passionate about exports. I believe that exports are very key to economic development growth here at home, because every time a product goes out into the global marketplace from Norfolk, there's $1 out equals $1.30 back in. And that gives these growers, it gives agribusinesses more opportunities to reinvest, hire new people, diversify, and look for new markets. So I'm very passionate about exports. I came from an export background when I was at Universal Leaf Tobacco Company, and while I'm equally as passionate about economic development here in Virginia with helping existing businesses grow, attracting new businesses in the agricultural and forestry sectors in particular, exports are a key part of domestic economic development growth as well.
Well, tell me this, are those boots on the ground foreign nationals that we use primarily, or are some of those employees from this country, where they refer to as expats, I think?
Yeah, these are all foreign nationals. They are typically contract employees. I think out of that whole network that I just described, one is an actual salaried benefited Virginia employee. I believe the gentleman in Hong Kong who's been representing us there with excellence for a number of years is a VDAX employee, Department of Ag employee. The rest are contract employees. We put RFPs out. They tell us their strengths. We analyze them. It goes through a pretty serious vetting process. We've made a couple of changes since we launched this initiative in late 2010, early 11. We've hired one. They fulfill the obligations of their contract. We've opened it up again to find out if there's someone there who can serve Virginia even better than the predecessor. And we've made some changes. But again, it's all about ROI. It's all about giving our growers, our agribusinesses more opportunities. So I think we're going to stick with that model of hiring contract employees and make them earn their keep. And again, the success, I think, speaks for itself in the new exports that have gone out from Virginia.
And of course, it's important to have someone who's fluent in the language and the culture, especially.
When we go on these trade missions, that's with the governor, or if we do the secretariat, or even Department of Ag staff, these representatives obviously help us build the trips, and they're bringing to us meetings for the governor, meetings for me, where it's people that they in some cases know. They developed a relationship. It's very random, very, very, very rare that we have cold calls. But it's those the person in Shanghai, China, that lives there, works there, networks there, meets new people there. India, same thing in New Delhi or Mumbai. They're in the fabric of the community. So it's very, very important that folks in the United Kingdom, who I'll be seeing again in a couple of months as I travel there for a mission, one without the governor and one with the governor, they are building these schedules with companies that they've known for years, ones they've just met, and then, quite frankly, because of all the governor's connections, he opens up a lot of opportunities for them to do follow-up on. So yes, it's important for having the locals there who know the culture, speak the language in particular, and help us grow our Virginia exports.
How is forestry doing? I assume that during the housing crisis, revenues suffered, but things are starting to come back at least.
Anecdotally, I think there's been no question a rebound is there, and we're putting the governor has some very significant investments in the Department of Forestry, recognizing that we're seeing a rebound. Quite frankly, the Department of Forestry has more needs now because of things that are going on in the private sector as the economy continues to rebound, and the forestry industry, because of wood products going into the housing market and other lines, is coming back. Anecdotally, I've heard tremendous amount of new opportunities and sales and successes, and that's really one of the reasons. I think we kind of know agriculture is always going to be in that $50 to $60 billion range as far as the economic impact study is concerned. We saw forestry really take a hit during the recession, and we saw forestry go from $24 billion in annual revenue and about 200,000 jobs down to $17 billion and 100+ thousand. Now again, third largest private sector in the economy in the state, so nothing to be ashamed of, but they just took it on the chin more so than agriculture. Anecdotally, the successes and the good news have been there. So I think when we do the updated study with Weldon Cooper beginning later this year, I believe we'll see upward movements for the annual revenue in the state, but also the jobs because of what we're seeing and hearing. And I know also from the APHID pipeline, the Ag Development Fund pipeline, when we launched that in 2012, the feedback that we got was almost singularly from the agricultural sector. Over the last year or so, we're really starting to see new forestry projects come online. Not only expansions of existing operations, but companies from out of state looking to invest in Virginia. So I add that to the anecdotal evidence that I have to say, hey, we're seeing a rebound in the forestry sector, and I think it's going to be good news when we actually have the experts at UVA Weldon Cooper Center quantified and clarified for us.
Now, are the exports for forestry primarily domestic to other states, or is there an international element?
Huge international component. Top 5 as far as our portfolio of products going into the global marketplace. A lot of opportunities in Southeast Asia, as I mentioned. One of the reasons we're looking at having a trade representative somewhere in Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia region of the world. China represents a lot of opportunity with our wood products. India, Middle East, wood pellets going from Virginia to Europe, the EU in particular, represent a lot of this. I guess the last 3 years, wood pellets have been the fastest growing commodity out of Virginia on a percentage basis. So yes, we are a major player, as is other southern states. We're considered the wood basket of America. And again, our forestry department is working with our private sector landowners to make sure that we're doing things in a sustainable manner. I mean, the last thing we want to be doing is cutting down trees and not replanting and thinking about the future. So that's one of the key things that the Department of Forestry does. Is people don't think about it. Department of Forestry really gets a lot of attention because of fighting wildfires, so forth. But one of the main things that they do is making sure we have a very sustainable, healthy wood basket. And again, the budget amendments that we have in place that hopefully the General Assembly will be approving really go to the heart of that, and making sure that Department of Forestry has the resources it needs to continue working with our private sector partners to keep growing those great wood products.
Grapes, wine, craft beers, we're doing well with that too.
We are. I think it's official that Virginia is the top location on the East Coast as far as craft beverages. When you put everything together, wine, cider, as we discussed earlier, craft beer, and distilled spirits, we're growing by leaps and bounds. And there again, you're creating jobs, additional revenue for the localities, but the feedstock, the products, the commodities that needed to make these products typically are coming off farms. I mentioned Blue Bee earlier. They're going to be buying more apples. There are going to be more apple trees planted. Hardywood is another APHID recipient grant. There, obviously, it takes hops to make beer, and Virginia is starting to be a producer of hops. We're way behind some of our bigger state competitors, but there's a lot of other things that go into making the quality beers that they're making. So they're buying lots and lots of agricultural commodities, and you can go down the list. With distilled spirits, we have a significant meeting tomorrow with a major distillery that's looking to grow its operations and buy even more agricultural products. So I must admit, when we created the APHID in 2012, we were really thinking mostly, as far as agriculture was concerned, about big agriculture, the big, larger
Right,
commodities.
right.
Maybe with the wine industry. We've finally done one grant to the wine industry. The other grants, as far as craft beverage have been to cider, distilled spirits, and craft beer. And I should have seen that coming because, again, the feedstock to make those products all come from farms just like grapes do. But it's really, really exploded in a very positive manner in the last 3 years, and we want to continue working with them because it's giving places like Richmond, Virginia, new opportunities in agribusiness, and the farms that surround Richmond more opportunities. But that's just one example. There are plenty others all around the state. We're very proud of that, and the governor says he wants Virginia to be the East Coast leader for craft beverages. I think we're there, and I think we're going to continue adding to that status in the coming months and years.
We often hear of new technologies in urban areas. Are there new technologies that are assisting farmers now?
There are, particularly Karen Jackson and I talk a lot about the Secretary of Technology of Virginia, a great friend and colleague for a number of years now. We talk a lot about the use of unmanned aerial vehicles, drones, in agriculture, but we're seeing that, and we held a town hall meeting at a winery last year in late 2015 about the opportunities, not just for a winery with use of UAVs, but also all of agriculture. But yes, there's new technologies coming on. Anyone who thinks that farming is just planting, harvesting with a nice tractor, whatever preference of brand that you have, is sadly mistaken. You're seeing all sort of cutting edge technology being employed there, making sure that there's not a bit of wasted money, wasted materials, whether it be fertilizer, fuel, anything that's going in to grow a crop or produce a crop. Technology is playing a very, very significant role. And somebody has said, I wasn't smart enough to think about this, but they said that agriculture was the original STEM education.
That's a good point.
And it's a really good point because everything that you have to do from the farm all the way through to the port or the marketplace is tied back to STEM. And there's a gentleman who I'm very fond of who's in his mid to late 70s. He's been involved in agriculture, global agriculture, his entire life. And he told me that in his 70 plus years on this earth, this is the most exciting time for agriculture he's ever seen because of needing to feed the world. We're on a glide path to 9 billion people. But he talked about all the technology involved in making these high-class, high-profile agricultural products that we're promoting and selling in the global marketplace. So it gives me a lot of confidence in what we're doing, not only right now, but as we think about the future and the next governor and the governor after that, making sure that agriculture continues to play a very significant role, not only here at home in diversifying that economy, creating that new Virginia economy, but also helping to feed and clothe and shelter the world.
Great. Well, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
Secretary of Agriculture and Forestry.
Thank you, Woody.
Todd Haymore. Thank you for watching this special edition of Cable Reports brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association. Until next time, I'm Woody Evans.
Mm-hmm.